Hello and welcome to the FEZ show. It is Monday the 27th of April 2020, a start of a new week, and we have some great topics to discuss today. Today will be an esport review of the first round of the Stay at Home Challenge in Hong Kong. Also, if you've been enjoying the content, you can hit that like button, and remember, hit that subscribe button as well. It helps us out massively. Joining me on today's show, as always, is Jack Pickering and Edward Hunter. Morning, boys.
Good morning.
Morning, Jack.
Morning. How was your weekends?
Well, yeah, I didn't get up to much, but yeah, it was a good weekend.
Well, I had a good time watching all the Formula E esports action from Hong Kong, including the Sim Racers race and, of course, the Formula E drivers race.
Yeah, there was a lot of esports actually, and there's a lot of esports to actually compare Formula E to, mainly IndyCar. I was quite impressed with IndyCar's spectacle today. And the first thing really I want to talk about is the coverage, because obviously the coverage of the IndyCar event, well, obviously the big name for IndyCar, they had Lando Norris. There was a lot of hype about that event, and I was watching that event and I was comparing it. Obviously they're on two different platforms. Okay, one was on iRacing and obviously Formula E is on rFactor 2, but then at the same time I also watched the race, which obviously had its Legends Trophy, which happened directly after, which include Dario Franchitti and Jack Nicholls. Obviously Jack Nicholls commentating, Franchitti driving, which I thought, man, that was a quick turnaround for both of them. But at the same time, what I found interesting is obviously in our race, Van Dorn obviously was on pole position, got off to a great start, but then crashed at the chicane, at the turn 3 chicane. But we had no idea that he'd crashed. I did, because I had Van Dorn's stream on. But if you were not watching the stream, Jack, you had no idea what happened to Van Dorn, and they didn't explain what happened to Van Dorn 20 minutes after the race. But whereas if you watch the race, which is also ran on rFactor 2, they were using instant replays within that race, and it was only a 6-lap race, so they didn't have much time to do that. So I think really and truly the coverage that Formula E have done on there so far on this challenge has to improve dramatically going into next week.
Yeah, definitely. I wasn't watching Stoff's stream, so yeah, I didn't see the accident when it happened, and I'll be honest, I only found out what happened basically when I watched the highlights that we have up on our YouTube channel. And I watched those highlights this morning, so that's how I found out how stuff went down the order. But yeah, I do think they do need to step it up in some places. It's not just the whole replay settings, but also the graphics as well. I'm very happy that they've got the proper official Formula E graphics, but at the top, it just says 15 laps for the duration of the race. It doesn't say what lap we're on. It doesn't say, it doesn't say anything like that. And also, you have to look really closely to try and work out who's been eliminated and who's next to go out. And there are many things that I do have problems with, but especially if something big happens out on track and you miss it on the broadcast, you do need to show a replay, because otherwise, yeah, as Nicholls and Franchitti said, Stoff's down to 6, but we have no idea what's happened there. So yeah, it's something that needs to be done.
It just didn't look great, Ed, to be honest with you. You're trying to, again, I'm referencing IndyCar, and obviously IndyCar using iRacing, the graphics were crystal clear. You had lap count, you could see what drivers were in the top 3. The graphics for the Formula E, yes, it's the official, they look very similar, but they were so small. I couldn't see them. I had to really squint, get really close to the screen just to sort of see it. It's not the same size or, the same depth that we have when we're normally watching a Formula E race. There was no laps, which, as Jack alluded to, so you didn't know what lap they were on. You were referencing, you're hoping the commentator knew what lap they were on, and all of a sudden it's the final lap, but you didn't know it was coming up to the final lap. So I think a lot still to improve.
Yeah, I think it's always a bad sign when the graphics don't really help that much, and it's requiring the viewer to do all the work. That they should be there to help the viewer, not to just sit there and do nothing and be unclear. But also, in terms of talking about replays, I remember when I commentated on the Road to Vegas, the previous Formula E competition a few years ago, they did have replays, and even they had replays. So I think it's just down to having experience with the actual rFactor game, and Motorsport Games, who I believe are running these Formula E events at the moment, perhaps haven't had quite the same experience. Definitely not with Formula E, at least. You'd have to question some of the direction going on there, especially because even during the Formula E race there was the Oliver Rowland Oliver Turvey battle that we saw one overtake, and they were swapping places like a couple of times throughout the race, but we only saw one part of that, and that was a little bit disappointing, I felt.
Yeah, and what Jack alluded to earlier was fans obviously like, if you're going to reveal how Van Dorn crashed 20 minutes, people have watched the race, they're not going to listen to Nicky and all the interviews. It's unlikely. So they're going to switch off and they're going to get ready for the new thing. And to be fair, it's no. Just to make it clear, it's no dig at Nicky Shields or Dario Franchitti or anyone at Formula E. Really, it's just things that we've spotted, and you're always going to compare it to other. There's so many esport events at the moment out there, and when you're seeing stuff on the same platform like the race, doing replays, doing instant replays, super slow-mos, which they were able to do in the Legends race that I watched. So you've got to look at that and go, you know what, we need to up our coverage. And I think Formula E this week really need to go to, the people like the race, Jack, who are doing these every week, every Saturday on the same platform, and say, hey, how do you do it? We need to make our coverage better. We missed a massive moment and we looked really silly during R1. How can we get these replays in much sooner?
Well, yeah, that's one thing that they need to do. What best thing to do if something's happened and you don't know how to fix it, ask around. Either that or Google the question, my brother says. But it will be good for the production team at Formula E to go to the race, be like, how are you doing all this stuff? And so yeah, it would work. It would work quite well but the thing is, at the same time, I've been watching the F1 Virtual Grand Prix series, which they do on the Formula One game, and I don't think I've seen a replay setting in there the last few weeks. So it's okay. Formula E isn't the only one, because I watched the Chinese Virtual Grand Prix, and Alexander Albon jumped Charles Leclerc in the pit stops, and they completely missed that. It's okay in terms of the fact that it's something that we can learn from, we can move forward, and then fingers crossed over the coming races we will get this. We will get all these niggling problems sorted.
Yeah, you have to remember, Ed, it's only race 1. We've got another 7 races now to do. So there's still, obviously, the test race was just to make sure everything worked. And then they've made some adjustments, which we thought were really good. And we were really happy with the adjustments that they've made. So now you're thinking, okay, I think someone just needs to watch it again and go, maybe that's a bit too small. So people do it all the time. They just review their content and go, that maybe that didn't work. Maybe that needs to be bigger. Compare yourself to other stuff. Because you mentioned the Oliver Rowland and Turvey battle. Formula E over the last 2 days have been probably promoting that as the best battle, during the race. And they hardly showed it. So if there was a really great battle that you like, this was a really good battle, lads, but at the same time you didn't show that battle during the race, that's a bit like, well, how do we know if it was a great battle? We didn't see it.
Yeah, and I think a lot of this really stems from the fact that Formula E have just pretty much ignored esports ever since Vegas. So it's been 3 years of not doing it, and then they got back into it, and they're all a bit rusty, or they've got new people in who don't have the experience. So I think, like you say, it's round 1, so they will probably learn a bit and improve it as it goes, the coverage as it goes on. But it's worth pointing out these issues nonetheless, I think.
Yeah, because as I said, I think there was a Blanche Bond GT race yesterday at Silverstone, and that had the official graphics. It was all greatly sized, and obviously that was their first race. So there's just, the problem is for Formula E, there's so much to compare it to. There's so many different esports out there to compare it to. And if yours isn't up to the standard of everyone else's, you're going to say, hey, look, I can watch this one and I know what's going on. But if I don't know what's going on here, then, it's a bit of a turn-off. So hopefully they do sort that out for next week. But one thing that they did change, and we were very happy with, was the damage mode. Now, I wasn't, I'll stand by that. I thought 100% would be a bit silly. They didn't go to a full 100%. They went to 80%, which I think you have to say was fairly successful. There was damage, there was consequences to crashes. Obviously, Van Dorn, you didn't see like a wing fly off. I don't think that's sort of modded, or a wheel fall off, but they just had immense steering damage. I remember watching Van Dorn after he crashed. He did extremely well because he was racing pretty much like that on a straight line, and he was able to really hustle that car and challenge Robin Freins in fourth for fourth place.
Yeah, I agree completely about the damage model being upping the stakes a bit and creating issues for the drivers. Obviously, for some of the drivers lower down who got caught in like the melee at the first corner, for example, like I think I remember reading Neil Yarny's comments on this, that he basically Da Costa spun in front of him in qualifying, and then he ended up sort of getting bumped into at turn one and ended up having to do the rest of the race with the Sting. So he felt he had better pace and just couldn't pass anyone, which is the typical bad luck Neil Yarny story, unfortunately for him. But yeah, it made things a bit more interesting. We never saw wings or wheels fall off, I thought, which is probably good because it meant everyone was still going. We did see in, I think, the Sim Racers race a Mercedes flip at the start, which I think was Archie Hamilton, if I remember correctly. So that was a little. I think that was more of an R factor physics thing. But apart from that, yeah, I think it was better. I think if Van Dorn had made that mistake in real life at the chicane, he would have been out of the race, no question. So it was good at least to be able to see him continue.
Yeah, definitely. Like, I think the damage, it was good. Like, there was, as I said, the punishments were there for silly collisions, and there was a lot of drivers that had it, and we had a few retirements from it, like James Collado pretty much retired with damage, and which then Jack sort of, the elimination process, I think there was about 3 laps without any elimination. We didn't have Lucas Di Grassi start the race, so he disconnected. Then we had John Vernon apparently disconnect, and he was in the top 4. We had Collado retiring from damage, and I think 1 or 2 others retired from damage as well. So for about 3-4 laps, there wasn't actually any need for the elimination process, which was part of the problem by upping the damage, which we said if you up that, there is a chance you're not actually going to use this elimination thing, and we won't reference it.
Yeah, that was something that confused me halfway through the race when there were 3 or 4 laps where Antonio Felix da Costa was still at the back of the field and wasn't getting eliminated. But yeah, that's because of Jev disconnecting and a few other things along the way. Obviously, if there is the chance to crash, there is a bigger chance that you won't need the elimination format. This is one of the things that we kind of discussed last week, in that there should probably be a few more laps before the elimination starts, and if they extend the race to make it a 20-25 minute race instead of just 15 laps. If they run at 250, then they might have some energy saving to do, and then on top of that, we will have a bit longer to go to the elimination format, which means that if there are incidents in the first couple of laps, it means that the elimination format will start a little bit later, and it means that there's less chance of this like 3-lap gap between people being eliminated happening.
And I think this goes straight, for me, it goes back to the coverage, because you need to be aware. Like, James Collado's crash from retired, tell us why. Like, what did he do? How did he crash out? Just give us something to say, oh look, he's crashed out, therefore and the commentators, I feel for them because they're just commentating on what they can see, right? And sometimes what they can see is actually not that interesting, and there might have been something interesting going on, or they've missed something that was interesting. So I can't fault Jack Nicholls and Dario Franchitti at all, and it's not a dig at them whatsoever. It's just stuff to improve. But for me, it goes back to the coverage, because they don't know who's being eliminated. They need to be told by the person who, if you're watching the streams, for example, the person was telling them, okay, Antonio Felix da Costa has been eliminated. We're not going to have any elimination this lap because this has happened. That's how I found out James Collado had crashed. That's how I found out that these drivers were being eliminated, through Van Dorn's thing, because he was getting the team speak of the actual director of the Formula E for the Race at Home Challenge, telling them what's going on. So that was great for me, because then I could feed that out to everybody else. But if you're not watching Van Dorn, if you're not watching Twitter, then you don't know. You're just sitting there thinking, what's happened to him? What's happened to him? Where did he go? And then all of a sudden, you've spotted that. Because the commentators haven't spotted that, 5 laps later, they sort of, oh, where's Jev? Oh, Collado's gone. Oh, that's why he's gone, apparently. And you're just like, oh, okay. And you're like, you kind of like, I spotted that, but I wanted more. So you can't, if you see Collado's crashed, as I said, it goes back to those replays, Ed. You need to show us why we're not having an elimination that lap, and then explain.
Yeah, exactly. And I guess me and Pico have been in the exact same position as Jack and Dario, where we're just watching the screen. We can only see what other people see on the screen, and the timing screens as well. So we see someone dropping down the timing screens. If it's not shown on screen, we can only really speculate as to why they may have retired. So yeah, that's even without factoring in like the elimination format that we now have, like you say. And I agree with what you were saying about in terms of it all just goes back to the broadcast. And I remember in the sim races race, it was all focused on the action at the front. There was a great lead battle, which Josh Rogers just passed Peter Briljack for the lead at the end, which was quite exciting. But we didn't really see any of the elimination going on. I think they cut back once or twice, but yeah, that we never really saw that. So I think more could have been done if it was less exciting at the front, like it was in the FE drivers race. More could have been done to cut back.
Yeah, but just to sort of like wrap this bit up in terms of the actual race, like it was actually, I thought it was a good race. Like Maximilian Gunther obviously winning, obviously taking advantage, but he didn't even qualify. You think he qualified fourth actually, or third? I think it was third, but Cassidy overtook him going into turn one. I thought Cassidy was the star of the show, Jack. Like he was quick in Monaco, but he was super quick in Hong Kong, and he passed Verline, a little bit of argy-bargy down at turn 2, but was pretty quick and pushed Gunther all the way. But Gunther got past him in that turn 2 with the argy-bargy with Pascal Verline. It allowed Gunther through, but he stayed with Gunther for the majority of that race.
Well, yeah, with that turn 2 overtake, when I was watching it, I thought, that's a little bit too hard from Max Gunther to get in second place. Because the thing is, had that not happened, Nick Cassidy would have won the race, and so we'd effectively be getting rid of the driver who won the Hong Kong race at home challenge for next week. But yeah, I think he did an absolutely stupendous job. He was quick out the gates last week. I think he got some point. He finished top 10 last week. There were no points last week. And then Saturday to get a podium was fantastic for him, and it kind of proves that he deserves to be there. But now Sam is apparently coming back for round 3, so we won't see much more of him unless we can shove him in the sim races race, because we have got Joel Eriksson and we had Yanni Junkadea last week. So yeah, possibly.
Yeah, because obviously we saw some, as you said, racing drivers, obviously James Rossiter as well in the sim race. So it would be great because obviously he deserves to be in there. Like he's probably one of the quickest drivers, and obviously with Sam Bird, we don't know if Sam Bird's going to be very quick. Sam Bird might have similar issues because he's been saying that his internet connectivity has not been great. His internet connectivity might not be great going into next week, and he might get disconnected, a bit like what happened to Lucas Di Grassi and Jean-Eric Verne. So, that could happen, and then all of a sudden Virgin have gone from having someone who's racing and fighting at the front to not having someone fighting at the front. But maybe Cassidy might just enjoy the sleep, because I think he's another one from New Zealand who's waking up at 3-4 o'clock in the morning, like Brendan Hartley, and he's like, you know what, lads, I've enjoyed it, but I prefer to sleep. But maybe he'll be in the sim race as well. But so obviously Gunther winning, it was a great drive, and I think he's probably him and Van Dorn, Ed, now are probably the person to beat. But Pascal Verline in his first race now probably shouldn't be surprised, because I believe Pascal Verline, you give that boy any sort of thing to race and he's quick at it. Like, I don't know how much sim racing he's done in the past, but I don't even know if he had a proper sim rig until Formula E gave him this sim rig that they've got now. And he's straight on the pace, as quick as Van Dorn, was fastest in practice. Was actually very disappointing in qualifying, because Van Dorn was talking that you probably need a 1:8.5, and now they were running very close to very close to the sim racer's time. I think Verline's time was like a 59.2 or something like that. It was very quick, and they were all separated by a couple of temps. Like Van Dorn did a 59.3, and Gunther, they were all there, but obviously they had one lap in qualifying, so they did lose about half a second. But Verline lost a bit more. He just did just over a minute, I think. So he lost a lot of time, but still managed to qualify fairly high. But he was the fastest man in practice, so I'm pretty sure he has to become now a man to beat and a proper person that can challenge for this championship.
Yeah, I think you can't really rule Verline out, certainly. I think we haven't seen some of the best of some of the other drivers, like Mitch Evans. Da Costa, of course, spun at Hong Kong, and so he couldn't really do very much after that. But yeah, I think Verline has been very impressive, both in real cars and, of course, now in sim racing. So it'll be interesting to see if he can get that Mahindra onto the top step in a future race.
You know, you mentioned Da Costa there, and I just have a feeling, Jack, that, you know, Da Costa does iRacing and is very quick on iRacing. And maybe, you know, jumping from one sim game to another sim game can be quite difficult. You might not be as quick on one as the other. And I feel having a feeling now, Da Costa, who has been quite quick on iRacing, that maybe R Factor 2 just isn't his game. Because even in the practice, he was about 15th, 14th. He wasn't up there. He was much higher up in Monaco. He was in the top 5. But in practice, he was about 15th, 14th in practice when I was watching his stream. So I was like, maybe R Factor 2 might just not be his game.
Quite possibly, yeah. I know that some people don't do well game to game. I know that in the Formula One world, Max Verstappen is refusing to do the F1 virtual races because he doesn't want to play F1 2019. So yeah, I think in terms of Da Costa, he might be fantastic on iRacing, but maybe transferring that over to R Factor 2 is just not working out right now. But yeah, I think it will come with time. Give it maybe a couple of weeks. Wherever we're racing this weekend, he might be back up on the pace. But we just don't know yet.
No, we don't, not at all. So what I sort of want to sort of discuss now, obviously we don't know where we're racing basically for next week. So we've been really fueling Ed. This DLC, what's going to happen? Are we going to be racing on more official Formula E tracks in R Factor? Are they going to come to the fans? Is it going to be like a mini official game for Formula E? But, you know, last week they announced that we were racing in Hong Kong, which made sense because it was only Hong Kong left. They could go back to Monaco. There's nothing stopping them going back to Monaco. They could use this Leicester special that they did release. It's sort of official, but it was sort of free. I don't know if it would, you know, if Formula E would want to race on that sort of track. Maybe they will. But it is just a fictional track that they've made, which they could use. But, you know, do you see Formula E racing now on, you know, proper permanent tracks? Maybe go to Valencia because that's in the game. Maybe go to Algarve, which they've been saying we can go to for, you know, actual racing to sort of finish the season. Do you think they'll go to those sort of tracks, or do you think no, they're going to stick to their bread and butter of Formula E official tracks and like every other series is pretty much doing, and then maybe we'll have to have a DLC for Formula E tracks very soon?
Well, it's interesting because the Leicester edition, or whatever it's called, the Leicester track, which I've seen a few races on in R Factor 2, it's basically been designed for the Formula E cars, and so there's lots of there are these sort of straights, but there's lots of chicanes and stuff. So it's built sort of like you would imagine a Formula E grade track would be built, in terms of lots of places where you can regen and to sort of save energy during really long races. But of course, that's not what this shorter 15 lap format is about. So that does open up some of the more permanent circuits. Like I think Algarve and Valencia are probably quite likely to be on the calendar, if I'm honest, Jack. I think it's unlikely at this point. I think if there was going to be a DLC, you would think they would release it at the start of the championship, not midway through. So to be honest, I can see them filling out the calendar with permanent circuits, much like finishing off the real season once the whole situation with the pandemic eases up. Then I can imagine them doing the similar thing as well, funnily enough.
Yeah, but you mentioned, just to sort of wrap this section up, Jack, that Ed mentioned that, you know, they might have not have got into the esports, and this might have happened really quickly. So, and they haven't really thought about releasing a DLC and making R Factor 2 like its official game, sort of. I'm not saying it's going to be their official game, but if you've got most of the tracks and the cars, it's very close to being their official game. So maybe they hadn't thought about it. Then they thought, we have to do something now, but it's not going to be ready in time. It's okay, we'll do this. And then by the time that you've sorted it out and time we get there, you know, we might be able to release something.
Well, I have it on zero authority whatsoever, but I do reckon that they will release a that they will have some sort of DLC this week with the rest of the tracks or something. Because I think that's what Formula E will want to do. Yes, there's a chance we'll go to Valencia and the Algarve, and I'd quite like to see that. There are lots of tracks that I would like to see for Formula E race on, but yeah, no, I strongly believe, and I'm not sure whether this is the Eddie Jordan part in me because of all the wax shirts I usually wear, but 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 yeah, I reckon that we will see something announced this week. Because the thing is, with Formula E, they are kind of always renowned to doing stuff quite last minute, and and so yeah, we only heard about the esports like what, a week before. We only heard something was happening about a week before they officially announced it, but yeah, no, I'm certain that we're going to see something over the next couple of days.
Yeah, a lot of people have been telling me to expect something, but I don't know how much they know. But maybe a lot of people are telling me that's what I'm being heard so far. So last thing we got to talk about is just a little bit of breaking news, Ed, that Rome is going to stay on the calendar until 2025, which is great news. Shocked me a little bit at the timing, and I was worried that Rome, because obviously Italy have been really affected by COVID-19 at this point, that maybe we might have to miss a season in Italy just so they can get everything back to normal. But I think it's a really good sign from Rome to say, no, COVID-19 hasn't beaten us. The mayor there really loves Formula E, and it's great to see that it is going to be committed and stay on the calendar until 2025.
Yeah, that's Virginia Raggi, who's I think the mayor of Rome at the moment, and I remember she got a lot of criticism because there was rumours that Rome could have gone for an Olympics bid and instead they went for a Formula E race, and she got a lot of criticism for that. But I think that decision was vindicated because Rome's a great event. It really shows as well that they've got a lot of faith in Rome to sort of still be able to run the event in a year's time, I think, which is quite positive. So yeah, I love seeing the cars drive at Rome. I think you two have been to the Rome race, so you can probably test it's a great place to visit. So yeah, lots of positives from that. The only thing, the timing is a bit unfortunate, obviously with the current situation, but I think that can't really be helped at the moment.
Yeah, Jack, we were both there last year. It's amazing. It's an amazing circuit. I really like the circuit. It's got that wide openness, and then it's also got the tight, twisty things, where we saw the red flag last season where they crashed. So it's got a bit of everything.
Yeah, no, it's a fantastic facility. Everything from the fast downhill sweeps to the tight section around where the pits are. It was best week of my life in 2018 when I went to Formula E as media for the first time, and it was so much fun. So yeah, I'm very happy that we're going back to Rome because it's a great circuit, and yeah, fingers crossed that everything clears up so we can be back there in April 2021.
Perfect. Right, boys, we've sort of running out of time, slowly running out of time, so I just want to say a massive thank you for coming on the show.
Thank you.
No worries, Jack. And I have to say, I think you guys are both clutching at straws with this DLC, but we'll see what happens.
Well, the thing is, it makes sense. It makes sense. If they want to race on official tracks, look at IndyCar. Look at, they're racing on all their official tracks. They're basically doing the calendar as what, it would have been, for example. So I don't think it's out of the question. And I don't know if Formula E want to race on, actual circuits to sort of, cause it to have that comparison of lap times, even though it's a simulated game. But you're still, if you go to Interlagos, for example, people will compare a Formula One car around there to a Formula E car. Maybe they just still don't want that comparison, Jack. But apart from that, yeah.
Yeah, well, we'll have to see.
Right, so thank you so much for watching the show. Please remember, if you're really enjoying the content, to like and subscribe, and we will see you tomorrow for some more Formula Reaction. Goodbye.